Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Govardhanandi Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 10, Text 13. Yati danim tatagrecha paschat apyetat idrisham. Yati danim tatagrecha paschat apyetat idrisham. Yati danim tatagrecha paschat apyetat idrisham. Someone else? Yati danim tatagrecha paschat apyetat idrisham. Word for word. Yata, as it is. Idanim, at present. Tata, so it was. Agre, in the beginning. Cha, and. Paschat, at the end. Api, also. Etat, Etat idrisham. It continues to be the same. Translation. This cosmic manifestation is as it is now. It was the same in the past, and it will continue in the same way in the future. Translation, please repeat. This cosmic manifestation is as it is now. It was the same in the past, and it will continue the same way in the future. Purport. There is a systematic schedule for the perpetual manifestation, maintenance and annihilation of the material world, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 9.8, Bhuta Gramam imam kritsnam ava samprakrite vasat. As it is created now, and as it will be destroyed later on, so also it existed in the past, and again will be created, maintained, and destroyed in due course of time. Therefore, the systematic activities of the time factor are perpetual and eternal and cannot be stated to be false. The manifestation is temporary and occasional, but it is not false as claimed by the Mayavadi philosophers. Yatidanim tatagrecha paschet apyetaridrisham. This cosmic manifestation is as it is now. It was the same in the past and will continue the same way in the future. So continuing on with the same theme, Maitreya is talking about Kala, as was spoken about in the last few verses and the different speakers in the class. And so he's continuing. Now the slight difference in today's verse is that this emphasis on the cosmic manifestation being perpetual, and it was the same in the past, it will continue in the same way in the future. So there's nothing new going on. Prabhupada uses the word systematic, systems. A couple of times here, he used it previously also. So there's a system. Now, interestingly enough, this system, Krishna has his system, as we all have our own systems. But the difference is Krishna's system and systems are supreme and are perfect, where our systems are not supreme and imperfect. You know, and actually as mentioned in this verse that's quoted, Bhuta Gramam imam kritsnam, very similar. There's other Bhuta Gramam Saiva and Bhuta Paliyat. There's many verses in Bhagavad Gita similar to this one, where again and again the creation comes into place, is maintained, and then it is annihilated, then there's a creation. And again this happens. So this system is going on under the direction, of course, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And actually we have got nothing to do with it. We have got nothing to do with it. Although modern mankind kind of thinks himself to be able to shape the future in so many ways by making adjustments. But really there's nothing new going on. There's conflict, these disturbances, natural disturbances and mental disturbances. All these things have gone on in the past. Wars, the Kali Yuga. There have been many Kali Yugas. I think Manibandha explained so many days of Lord Brahma, and so many Manus, and so many Yugas, cycles of Yugas, and so many Kali Yugas, so many Satyugas. So these revolve around, and there's nothing really new going on. Now, all this system goes right up, actually, even beyond the material world into the spiritual world. Krishna has his system in the spiritual world. I was giving a few classes, I forget where, maybe in America. Just recently I was giving a few classes on the systematic expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how they go out in the spiritual world, is that Krishna has his system. And of course, from Krishna, on one side there's Srimati Radharani, on the other side is Balaram. They're the immediate expansions from Krishna and from the Balaram, and then Lord Balaram expands, and Radharani expands in so many ways on the other side. All the gopis and the wives of Krishna and the Lakshmis all come from originally from Radharani. And on the side of Balaram, of course, there's Vasudev. In Dwarka, there's Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. These are, now, technically speaking, these are called the first Chatuvyuha, the 4 expansions originally coming from Balaram. So there's systems, there's a whole system here. And there's all technical names to these Chatuvyuha and all the different types of activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then from the Sankarshan, then Lord Narayan. Now there's the Krishna Loka. Can you imagine, you'll see on the front cover of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the painting there of the Krishna Loka. I think it was the first canto. The Krishna Loka, and then all the different planets in the spiritual world. And there's different Vaikuntha planets, and all of the Vaikuntha planets that Narayan has expanded. Lord Narayan is expansion from Krishna, originally Krishna, but then expanded to Lord Narayan, or Lord Vishnu, who exists in all those different unlimited spiritual worlds. And then from that, it's mentioned that from Lord Narayan, there's a second Chatuvyuha. Lord Narayan has his Chatuvyuha, expands in all directions from him. And from each one of these expansions of the Chatuvyuha, there's 3 more expansions that go out in the different planetary systems. And then, so there's 4 Chatuvyuha multiplied by 3, there's 12. And there's a whole explanation given that the 12, they are the predominating deities of the 12 months of the year, somehow or other. It's all connected up. It's all connected up. An amazing sequence and an amazing system. Now, of course, from the Sankarshan comes the big Mahavishnu. You may have seen paintings of the Mahavishnu in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Mahavishnu, of course, from the Lord is created this whole cosmos, and he goes and lies in the cosmos, and from him comes the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and all the planets come and he enters in, and then Kshirodakshaya Vishnu expands from him, goes everywhere within our heart, travels with everyone in the atom also. So it was mentioned yesterday in the verse yesterday, and yes, I mentioned yesterday that this time, this Kala, is an impersonal manifestation. Ultimately, it's personal, because it originates, especially as mentioned, that the spark of my splendor, I maintain this universe. And that spark is the Paramatma, the Lord within the heart of all, the Lord even in the atoms. And it's because the Paramatma causes the atoms to move. It causes the neutrons and the electrons, you know how there's all those protons, wasn't it? Protons, they all move around. But the energy coming is in the middle, and there, of course, it cannot be seen. He cannot be seen. That is Paramatma, giving the energy to all that and the movement of the atoms. So there's very much a system starting right from the spiritual world and coming right into this material world, a system. And even the incarnate, just like in the second canto, there's one chapter called Scheduled Incarnations. Scheduled Incarnations. Someone may profess, I am an avatar. I am the reincarnation. There was in Prabhupada's time, there was one very popular guru who proclaimed that I am Rama come again. Here I am. I am Krishna come again. I am Rama come again. I am an avatar. And you should all surrender unto me, and I will show you the way. I am the Supreme God. I remember Prabhupada, he is not G-O-D, he is a D-O-G. So Prabhupada didn't appreciate someone standing up there. I am the God, I am the avatar, I am Rama, I am Krishna. And I do remember a picture of that particular personality playing the flute with a peacock feather in his hair. Showing that how he was Krishna. You've got a lot to live up to if you want to say you're Krishna. Someone says, I am God. Oh, yeah, well, tell me how many hairs on your head. You can't even tell me that. How many hairs on your... You can't even the simplest things. You know, well, someone wants to profess they're the supreme. They don't even know what's going on over there. What to speak of being the supreme of all that be, and everything emanates from this particular individual. So, so many crazy persons around may say so many crazy things. Doesn't mean... Of course, there's always... a certain type of person will just accept that and follow that and believe that because within their hearts they want to believe. And so Krishna fulfills that you want to believe that, then go ahead and believe it. And so Krishna fulfills that desire. But those who are more intelligent by Krishna's grace, they understand that this is... it cannot be like that. How can someone, ordinary person... so, you know, in this scheduled incarnations, they're all... stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam who are the scheduled incarnations, and there's different descriptions of their activities. There's different signs. There's just like we were giving the class I think I was in Singapore. I was giving the class on Radhastami, explaining how Radharani has so many symbols on her lotus hands, on her lotus feet, just like Krishna has so many symbols. And I was giving the class explaining about those symbols and what those symbols mean and all that. I was giving a class like that. So all the incarnations have these symbols. They're not just painted on. They're actually imprints in the palms, in the feet. They have like that. It's just like when Krishna walks somewhere, the residents of Vrindavan, they can tell Krishna's walking because the imprints in the dirt and the sand, these are Krishna's imprints. They can see Krishna's walked here. Now, I was telling on Radhastami that where Radharani walks, now on Balaram's, I was saying that Balaram, when his complexion is like crystal, a white crystal, that you don't have in this material world. Actually, the description was like that. You can't, there's a kind of a white crystal in this world, but it's not like Balaram. Balaram's white crystal is a spiritual hue. So where he walks, the ground turns to crystal. You can follow Balaram's footprints because all the pebbles and the stones turn to crystal. So there was one story how Balaram was looking for Krishna, and he followed Krishna's footprints by the different imprints that were on the dirt and the sand. But then at one point he noticed that next to that is gold and gold stones and gold pebbles. And he knew, this is Radharani. This is because her complexion is golden hue. And as mentioned, wherever she walks, those things become golden. So Balaram thought, okay, Radharani's joined Krishna and they're walking together here, so I won't interrupt that. He doesn't like to interrupt that mood of Radha and Krishna. So there was one story like that, so I was telling that story on Radhastami. So, they're all scheduled. So someone to say that I am God, why are you searching for God? So they can speak in very, attractive ways. Why search for God? I notice they use a lot of the S's, spiritual and searching for the supreme. Why are you searching somewhere else when you are all supreme? And so it kind of sounds attractive. Everyone goes, yes, we should all follow this particular person. But one has to use their intelligence about how to understand things. So luckily and fortunately for us, we've got books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada actually mentions in Bhagavad Gita that to actually he says to make advancement on spiritual life is not so easy. It's easy to take up, but to follow it all the way through is not so easy. And to come to the end, to the perfection of it, that he said actually is very difficult. It's very difficult. And he says that in the beginning, one needs a lot of knowledge from books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So fortunately for us, we have that. People in the world, therefore Prabhupada always pushed on this, selling these books as far and wide as possible, all over the world. He was always pushing on us, remember? The proper disciples. He was always pushing how many Bhagavad Gitas, go out and sell so many. Because he wanted that knowledge everywhere. And because if people haven't got this knowledge, they're very easily misled. They're already distracted in so many different ways. And many are thinking something is spiritual, that thing is spiritual, but actually is it or is it not? Maybe, maybe not. But to know very definitely or definitively, then we can have books like Bhagavad Gita, we can have books like Srimad Bhagavatam. So going back to what my point of the scheduled incarnations, we know exactly. And there's a system for that. And Krishna very much sticks to his different systems. We see in the spiritual world, as I was describing, the different Vaikunthas and the Krishna Loka, there's different systems. Of course, Krishna can vary at any given point. He can vary. Just like I always remember in the Ram Leela, that one time I was reading in Ramayana that where Nila, he's like a Chiranjeev. Nila is a monkey. He was one of the Jambavan actually. It was Jambavan and Nila were walking together following Lord Ram when they were looking for Sita. I might have mentioned this before. When they were walking and Lord Ram turned and went in a certain direction, then Jambavan, who's lived a long time, and he's been engaging with Lord Ram on other occasions also, and he said to Nila, he said, oh, wait a minute, Lord Ram's gone in a different direction this time. Last time he went over here. This time he's gone over here. So I just noted that. And said, oh, okay. So Ram and Krishna, they vary their leelas accordingly to their taste or to a particular purpose. So there is variation. Within the system, there is variation. But the system will always be there. So this is what is meant to, this cosmic manifestation is as it is now. This is a system. And in the future will be in a certain way. And just like I think Krishna Gan was saying, the system is so predictable. The incarnations are predictable, the expansion of the spiritual world are predictable, and they're all predictable. And the activities of this world are predictable. The sun comes up, you can know in 6 months' time, you can look it up and see what time the sun's going to come up over here, isn't it? When are the tide? When's the tide today? You look it up and you go there, right. Because it's going on very exactly. There's a certain system. The sun moves, it's in orbit. I think these things were mentioned by previous speakers. The sun, although the modern day they think the sun is stationary, but actually the sun has an orbit, all the planets have their orbit, and they all stick to it. All the winds are moving, there's a certain plan to it all. So this is very, very important. So all these systems are actually perfect in their own way. And I go to this, I always remember back in the day we were always Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Remember that prayer from the invocation from Ishopanishad? We always chant this Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachete Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishite. You might have heard that on a tape. Govinda Dasi sings that. On what was that temple album? The Radha Krishna temple album or something like that? In the beginning they recorded it in London. But very beautifully sung. And very wonderful, Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam. Now, Prabhupada would quote this quite a lot. This is from Ishopanishad. The personality of God is perfect. This is the translation to this verse. And complete. And because he's completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped to as complete wholes. So, in other words, now I'll read on. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Sounds like a bit of a word juggery. You wrap your mind around. I remember before I was a full devotee, I read, one of the first books I ever read was Ishopanishad. Even before Bhagavad Gita, I think, I read Ishopanishad. So that got a little bit of a mind twister on that. Wait a minute. He is the complete whole. Even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. What the heck does that mean? I was thinking about it. So, but it's so being perfect, being unlimited, He expands in so many ways. Those units are complete and perfect in themselves, but it's not that he becomes, oh, now he's expanded, he is no more. He's expanded and now he's diversified in all those things he's expanded as. No, it's not like that. He expands out and yet he remains complete in himself. It's different from us. We've expended so much energy on doing something, and sometimes we say, oh, I'm wasted. I can't do another thing. I've worked so hard. I see Prabhu up there in the garden every day, working so hard. I wonder how much more he's got in him. But somehow or other he keeps going. But so we're different. So we can work hard, but then we get to the end and we just can't do any more. But Krishna's not like that. He can do so much unlimitedly, and that's just a fraction of his potency. And it's mentioned also in Ishopanishad that Krishna has unbelievable, unlimited potencies, inconceivably expanding more and more. We can't wrap our tiny minds around that concept because we're used to limited and in this world and relative things. But the Supreme Lord is unlimited, so he just remains the same. Not only the same, but he keeps continuing to expand. All the aspects, all the potencies, the knowledge aspect, the eternality, the bliss always expands, the knowledge always expands. All these things expand unlimitedly. This is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in other words, this world in itself is perfect. We may see a lot of disturbances going on, and we may think there's so many imperfections, but actually they're there for a reason. They're there for a reason. And Prabhupada actually mentions here in the purport that all this is enabled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to facilitate our desires. And so certain things that we do have certain reactions, and the reactions come because they need to, it needs to be happen in that way as to facilitate our desires. It's just, so it's arranged. It may seem imperfect, this world is imperfect. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport in this verse that there's like the Mayavadis, they see so many disturbances, and so the nature of the world is very temporary. So they've just concluded, and understandably in one way, they've concluded it's just false. The whole thing is just false. It doesn't actually exist. Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mityam, isn't it? There's a very famous saying by the Brahman is the truth, and Jagat, the Prakriti, this material world, is just false. It doesn't actually exist. It's just a figment of your imagination. Reality is something else. So it sounds plausible. In one sense, understandable why one may conclude like that. They want to get away from the different distresses and the sufferings of the world, and so they want to go to a happy place. So the happy place, especially if you're thinking spiritual, well, it can't be anything like this. I've had troubles with this, and I've had trouble with that. I've had trouble with that personality or that personality. So, the last thing I want to go to the spiritual world is to have that personality there also. If she's going to be there, I don't want to go there. Right? There's no way I'm going there if she's going to be there. Right? So therefore you can easily understand why someone might conclude that, well, it doesn't exist, it's just all false. That sounds more plausible. But that's not going full enough. You haven't gone far enough. That's the position. You haven't gone far enough. He's gone to sleep here. So you have to, this is where books like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam are very important, and explained under the auspices of someone who's a self-realized soul, or in the line of the disciplic succession. They understand, having been trained in all these things, how to go a little bit further from that. You've gone a certain way, yes, the material world, so many disturbances, there's something beyond, but then to conclude, well, actually the whole thing doesn't exist at all, that is a wrong conclusion, or not a complete conclusion. So Prabhupada makes a point of that at the end of his purport in this verse today, that the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, they conclude like that it is just false. It is like an imagination. It is like a dream. But dreams are real. And in fact, I know that they can measure dreams, isn't it? They can hook up nodes to your brain or something like that, or they can scan it, and they can actually measure activity of the brain that they say equates to the function of dreams. So the dream itself is real, although it is not your actual position. Your actual position is something separate from your dream. Or in the material world, especially in Kali Yuga, it is more like a nightmare. It is more like a nightmare. So, but the nightmare, while you're experiencing it, it's there, it's real. But your actual position, as I said, is not there, it's somewhere else. So this is the Vaishnava understanding. This goes beyond the Mayavadi understanding, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mityam. It's, the Brahman is the truth. Certainly that's true. But Jagat Mithya, the material world is false. No, it is real. It's just temporary. It's manifest occasionally. It's wound up occasionally. Manifest again. Bhutpa priliyate. And so also explained here. So, but everything is going on in a systematic way, in an orderly way. All facilities are given to the small complete units, namely the living beings, to enable them to realize the complete whole. So the facilities are given, along with fulfilling the desires. Over and above that, we're supposed to come to the position of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now, in the first verse, of course, of the Upanishad, Ishabhashamidam sarvam yat kincha jagat jagat tena chakyena bunjita madgita kasya svidanam, very famous verse from Upanishad. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota. One should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So this is how to live in the world. There's a purpose. Of course, you're not supposed to suffer so much. In the material world, there's always suffering. But if you live a very pious life, understanding the purpose behind it all, that actually you're meant to use the things in a certain way to realize beyond the world, to realize the personality of God. That's the purpose. But because people don't know that, they're in ignorance, so they act in so many very extreme materialistic and sinful ways, they're going to get heavy reactions. Very, very heavy. But if you live in a very nice way, as dictated and instructed in the Shastras, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and explained by the different acharyas and so on, then you'll go on very nicely. You'll live in the world, and at the end you'll be able to go back home, back to God. So one of the things here, just live in the world. Don't overly extend yourself, especially becoming very greedy. Now, this greed principle is very prevalent in Kali Yuga. Greed. So people are becoming just more and more greedy. It's very symptomatic of of course there are many symptoms of Kali Yuga, but greediness and this divide between those who have a lot and those who don't have hardly anything is growing more and more and more and more every year. Just a fraction or a small percentage of the world's population control a huge percentage of the assets and wealth of the world. Everyone kind of knows it. There are statistics to show this. And so it is because of the greed principle. But here in the Upanishad, in the first verse, it's that one should only accept those things that are necessary to maintain oneself in the world. Don't atyahara prayas. Don't over endeavor for things that are very difficult. Don't let greed drive you. Even when you get something, still you're not satisfied. You want more and more and more and more. So he only accepts those things necessary and use them in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only accept those things which are set aside, knowing well to whom they belong. So we should understand everything is Krishna's property, and we're here temporarily. You come, you work hard, you get a house. But when you die, you can't take your house with you. You can't take your car with you. You can't take your wife or family with you. You can't take anything with you. You can't take your clothes with you. You can't take even your body with you. Everything's gone. So we're just here temporarily. I think I've mentioned before in the Bhagavatam the example of tourists. When tourists go travelling, they check into a hotel. So, that while they're in the hotel, they're living in the hotel, enjoying the facilities. But they always know we're just here temporarily. We're just tourists. We're just here for a week or 2 weeks. They don't get overly attached to their hotel room. I'm just here, then after, I'll go. So life in the world is like that. You live in the world, you work to your best ability, simultaneously you cultivate spiritual life, but you understand, ultimately are meant to understand things and go in the direction of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the best way, utilizing things, just like there's an example given, someone dropped their wallet in the street. Now one person sees the wallet and goes over and steals it and goes away. Another one just sees the wallet and just goes away. The third one goes over, sees the wallet, picks up the wallet, opens the wallet, there's the owner of the wallet, finds who that owner is and gives back the wallet to the owner. So which one do you think is the best one of those three? The one who steals the wallet, got all the cash? He's laughing, rubbing his hand. Some people would say that, yeah, go for it. There's a wallet, there's cash, no one's around. So who's the best one? The one, of course, who gives back to the owner. The owner's very appreciative. And so we are giving back to the owner. Now, Krishna doesn't, everything belongs to him. He's not in need of your tomato or your banana or whatever you offer. Krishna's got plenty of bananas, got plenty of tomatoes. He doesn't need your flower or your flower garland. He doesn't need any of these things. But he accepts, the main thing he accepts is the love and the attitude which is offered. So this is the perfection for a devotee. Living in the world, just maintaining as best they can, not over-endeavouring too much for things that are very difficult to achieve. Don't let greed set in and take over and dictate the whole life, as most materialists are like that, and do anything to achieve it, even kill and murder. This is the real entrapment of the material energy. Om Punam Adaha Punamidam Punat Punam Udachate Punasya Punamadaya Punameva Shishashe. The personality of God is perfect and complete, is completely perfect. All emanations, such as the phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. So again and again it comes, there's nothing new going on, not a new thing. It's all happening again and again. This, I think, is the understanding, or at least partial understanding of this verse today. So I'll read it again. Yati danim tadagricha paschat apyetat idrisham. This cosmic manifestation is as it is now. It was the same in the past and will continue in the same way in the future. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the class, Maharaj.
Thank you.
So you're speaking about how material nature, it has its system, it has its systems, and it's quite predictable, and humans have been able to predict it. Are these systems going to change with the degradation of Kali Yuga? Because we see so many unpredicted natural phenomena happen. Does that change over time, or does it stay very similar?
No, these things have, as I said, these things have happened before in other Kali Yugas. It's not that there's really, there may be a different variety of it, but because the nature of the living entity is that they want to enjoy, and especially they develop this greed and lust and more, so they will do generally the same things. It's almost predictable. Just like we'll say, you know a person, you know what she's going to do. You just know because they've done it before and they've got a certain nature, you actually know, and sure enough, she did it or he did it. He did it. Why? Because they got a certain age. So similarly, on a macro level, the living entities that take birth in the Kali Yuga, and interestingly enough, in this purport of this verse that Prabhupada quotes today, he mentions that all the species of life are created right from the beginning. There's not an evolution as, the Darwin theory of evolution, gradually one evolves from the other. It's not like that. It's all there right in the beginning. Even they're kept in their Garbhodakshay Vishnu, even in the Mahavishnu, in a suspended, all the living entities, they're all suspended, and then they come out again, and their desires from before are there again. So they go into the different species and they just enact their desires. So the living entities in the Kali Yuga, the different disturbances, the wars and the conflict and this and that, the other, it's all happened before. There might be slight different varieties of it, as I explained, but more or less it's the same thing, very predictable. Krishna knows these things, and all the sages know these things, what will happen as Kali Yuga, how they will act, because their natures are that way. So, as I said, nothing new going on, unfortunately. Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for a very nice class. You explained very nicely about the systems, both the material system and also Krishna system. And we are also part of a tradition that has a lot of systems incorporated and traditions. And so I would like to know, because if we see Srila Prabhupada's life, we saw that many things he changed, modified, adjusted, and was even heavily criticized by the traditionalists from India. I would like to know if you have any thoughts about that.
Well, basic principles, I mean, there's macro systems for the spiritual, as I was describing, macro systems, the expansions, and then in the material world, which is also under Krishna, there's macro systems. Then there's smaller systems, and we have our traditions. And acharyas are empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to introduce innovative ways to spread the teachings of Krishna, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All the basic essentials will always be the same. There's essential teaching, and then detail. Quite often devotees talk about, especially senior devotees, we talk about this quite often there. What is, especially when we're talking philosophy, what is essential, prime tradition and prime philosophy, and what is detail? So acharyas, they can change details of how to present it, but the essential prime philosophy will never be changed from acharya to acharya, and that is always, it should be and will be in the future the same. So yes, so someone may be criticized, and there are those who are too much attached to tradition and can't be budged. So that's another thing. I can't be budged. But is that thing they can't be budged from an essential principle, or is it a more detailed principle? That has to be understood. And so great acharyas are empowered to understand what is the difference between an essential that really cannot be changed, that has to be always the same, but what is a detail, how to present it and how to spread it, that is not essential but a detail that can be changed. So empowered acharyas can do that, and those who are not empowered and those who are very rigid, overly rigid, atyara prayasa cha prayat, overly rigid and without that depth of realization of what is the difference, and so on and so forth, will always be perplexed in their understanding of that, and quite often they will criticize. So we follow the principle of how the acharyas present it, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says actually the present acharyas, in one sense, all acharyas are very important, the sampradaya is important, but the present acharyas are more important than what they say is more important than what even the predecessor acharyas say, because the present acharyas, they present everything according for your understanding here and now. So in one sense we should pay more attention to what they say than even what the predecessor acharyas said in the past. We should not reject what the previous acharyas say, but the essential will always be the same, but the details may differ, so we should pay more attention, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, to the present acharyas or the recent acharyas, more so than even the acharyas from way, way back. So this is very important. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo.